Beijing believes that land within the demarcation line is its territory, which includes practically the entire South China Sea and overlaps with territories claimed by the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Vietnam. But this is not just a local dispute. The U.S. Navy regularly enters the area, claiming that it defends freedom of navigation. China does not go along with such statements and builds military facilities in the area. This situation remained stable for many years when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. At that point, China showed its belligerence. Its fighter jets have made provocative maneuvers. Its ships have been spotted near U.S. bases, and Chinese reconnaissance balloons have recently been spotted in airspace. Diplomacy is in manual mode and politicians in both countries are wary. General Michael Minahan's message has hit the web, saying that as early as 2025 there could be a direct conflict between America and China. It looks like America and China, without realizing it, are getting closer to an armed conflict. From time to time, the state needs to remind everyone that it is a danger, because the alternative is weak military power. Arms deals are the most common form of show of force, so defense spending is more than just numbers. China's defense budget for 2023 is $230 billion, but it is very small compared to the USA of $816 billion. The gap is substantial, but these figures are not an objective indicator. China's official spending does not include paramilitary forces, coastal guards, research and development programs for space programs, and any other military amendment. For 2017, China's defense budget is estimated at 87% of the Pentagon's budget. In 2023, this figure is likely to be even higher, as the gap between America and China seems no longer as significant as before. Moreover, while America spends defense resources around the world, China focuses its efforts mainly in its immediate vicinity. Because of this, Beijing gets a much greater return on investment. The fears of some U.S. military officials are based on these factors. What exactly China plans to do with its increased military might is no longer a secret. It seeks to dominate the space along the First Island chain and wants to achieve this by 2030. The First Island chain stretches from Japan to the Philippines and Indonesia at its center. Beijing seeks to take control of the runaway province of Taiwan, if necessary by force. For this operation, China has acquired the latest submarines, aircraft carriers, and fifth-generation fighters and other military assets. As China arms itself at an unimaginable rate, war is now closer than ever. For decades, according to U.S. officials, Beijing has been pursuing its goals with specific timelines in mind. One of them is the 2024 election year. In both the United States and Taiwan, there is a perception that the election will be polarizing and disruptive, especially in America. In addition, according to Taiwanese officials, believe that by 2024, Chinese forces will have amassed enough firepower and air power to launch an invasion. 2025 is considered the ideal time for Beijing to go on the offensive, and yet an armed conflict in 2 years is a very bold prediction. Many issues remain unresolved with absolute certainty. All that is known is that if America and China goes to war within the next decade, neither side will directly strike the mainland of the other. China is too large in size and population for a land war. The focus is more likely to be on Taiwan, the South China Sea, and the East China Sea. Beijing's main weakness is the chain of islands and archipelagos surrounding it and isolating its mainland from the oceans. The South China Sea is connected to the Indian and Pacific Oceans by narrow straits. The space between them is dotted with scattered islands. Any one of these territories can accommodate and conceal air and missile forces. The situation is similar in the East China Sea, with islands stretching from Japan to Taiwan like sentinels watching the sea. When Chinese military vessels move out of ports, they will be spotted by Japanese and Taiwanese surveillance systems and will be within range of anti-aircraft and missile systems. A glance at the map makes it possible to assess the stakes. China is a trading power accounting for most of the world's exports, but it has no unconditional access to the world's ocean's first chain of islands. Instead of fighting head-on, the Navy will try to occupy some of the nearby islands and hold out long enough to deploy air and land anti-ship missile systems there. Once the new weapons are in place, Chinese troops will be able to drive American ships out of the straits they have occupied, enabling China to gain guaranteed access to the world's oceans. This is why China has invested so much in artificial islands in the South China Sea. At the time of this video, Beijing has fully militarized 3 of the 7 artificial islands. They serve as unsinkable aircraft carriers, each equipped with anti-ship and anti-aircraft missile systems, laser and jamming equipment, and fighter jets. In the event of an armed conflict, China would use anti-ship and land-based missile systems to keep the U.S. Navy out of the straits of the first island chain, including Taiwan. The plan is feasible, but the problem is that Chinese missiles are vulnerable to USA air missile interception, so China is powerless against the United States from any perspective, at least for the next decade. Of course, Beijing will not initiate a conflict at a disadvantage, but in the future, starting in 2030, 5th-generation fighters and hypersonic missiles could change this inequality. Then the situation will escalate. American pilots are better trained than Chinese pilots. Besides, America has many allies in the region, including Japan, South Korea, Australia, Thailand, Taiwan, the Philippines, and so on. But on the other hand, China is supposedly leading the way in hypersonic weapons, and it is also the fastest to strengthen and expand armed forces, including commissioning aircraft carriers. At the current rate of development, it is expected that by 2050, China will reform its armed forces into a world-class fighting force comparable to that of the United States. What do you think of this current situation?